Good morning, and you can hear me. And welcome. Welcome to this virtual and in-person service on this 7th day of January, this wintry 7th day of January 2024. We know you come here for different reasons: to find community, to seek your spiritual and personal truths, to question, to nurture your heart and soul, to be nurtured, to explore new ideas, to find comfort, and perhaps to find the answers to some of your bigger questions. We know you come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, different backgrounds. We hope you can find comfort, connection, challenge, and love here. If you are watching online, please sign into the chat box so that we may know who is attending, and it will enable you to send in your joys and concerns. I am Ron Goen, and I will be assisting the Reverend Kevin Carson this morning. church's covenant helps us remember why we are a part of this faith and why we give our time and our resources to this congregation. If you so choose, please recite along with me the covenant that this congregation has chosen to live by. Love
is the spirit of this community, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
And now, Reverend Kevin will light the chalice. As we ignite this flame, may it represent the warmth of love, the clarity of wisdom, and the transformative power of community. Let it guide us on our journey of shared exploration and understanding.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Our call to worship this morning is the poem Where the Mind is Without Fear by Rabindranath Tagore. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms toward perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. I invite you now to join in singing our opening hymn, number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door.
Good morning.
Today I will be reading Balloons for Papa, a story of hope and empathy. It was written by Elizabeth Gilbert Bedia and illustrated by Erica Meza. One gray morning, Arthur walked hand in hand with his papa through the park, past cellar after cellar, until he came to his favorite one. Arthur wanted a balloon. since Mama went to the hospital, Papa had lost his smile. Sometimes Arthur did too, but balloons made Arthur smile. Today, Papa, please, the sunny yellow one. Mama loves yellow. Sadness filled Papa's eyes. No, Arthur, we need to hurry. Besides, the blustery clouds will whisk it away. Arthur gazed up. The clouds let out a gloomy sigh. So did Papa, and so did Arthur. The next day, Arthur hurried with his Papa through the park. Today, Papa, asked Arthur, the bright red one, like the bird in the tree. Not today, Arthur. We're going to be late. Besides, it's not a day for balloons. Arthur scowled at the sky. The clouds dripped, as did Papa and Arthur. The following day, Arthur was afraid to look. Raindrops plip-plopped on his nose. Arthur plodded behind his Papa as the rain fell. Splish, splash, splosh. No balloons today, thought Arthur. Then Arthur saw the brilliant bundle waving at him. He spotted the perfect balloon. Can I have the bright blue one, like the splishy, splashy petals? Please, Papa, it's your favorite color. A glimmer appeared in Papa's eyes, but disappeared just as quickly. No, Arthur. Papa hurried on to visit Mama as the rain fell faster and faster. Drip, drop, drip, drip, drop, drip, drop, drip, drop, drip, drop, drip. Arthur knew it wasn't his fault, but still he wondered, why is Papa being this way? His tears fell as fast as the rain. The clouds burst open with a downpour. Arthur gazed up at them. Are you sad too? That night, Arthur dreamed of a bundle of balloons and Mama smiling back at him. But then the clouds covered them all, and Arthur woke more determined than ever. He dashed down the door stairs and out the door and then stopped. To his surprise, a bundle of balloons was stuck in the tree right outside the house. Look, Papa, look, the balloons. I wonder how they got there, Papa said. Papa helped Arthur up to the balloons. Arthur held the strings tightly in one hand, and he held out his other hand. He held out his other hand to Papa. At that moment, Arthur realized what he really wanted. Arthur, I thought you wanted the balloons, said Papa. I thought I did too, said Arthur. But, well, balloons always make me smile. I hope they bring your smile back, said Arthur. Oh, and Mama's too. For the first time in a long time, Papa beamed. Oh, Arthur, look, you found my smile. And then Arthur smiled too. Hurry, Papa. Mama is waiting for us. The end. We will now sing up our child.
As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return.
And now, Reverend Kevin will light candles as I read the joys and concerns. First one here, Kat has got 3 joys. Grandbaby Archie has been born December 29th, and it was healthy. Second one was able to go to a celebration of life 12/29 of an amazing lady, Manette. And the third one, it is snowing. From Emma, a joy. A volunteer was able to locate the 16-year-old Jaden Jensen. His celebration of life is this upcoming Saturday in Pocatello. Sean, Jaden's father, asked Emma personally to sing on Saturday. Also from Emma, a concern. My brother was scheduled to have surgery on January 9th. Please send him healing energy. That way he has a speedy recovery. And from Vic, a joy. When Reverend Kevin fell ill and was not able to do our Christmas Eve service on our worship team put together a service within a handful of hours. We are very fortunate to have a team that good and that dedicated, and that is very true. And from Victoria, a joy. Thanks to everyone who donated food and warm clothing for donations. Items have been delivered to women's and men's shelters. Are there any additional joys or concerns?
There is. We have from Judy Stanley this morning. She says that she's concerned about the continuing bloodshed throughout the world, and may we hold peace in our hearts. And she also says, I'm thankful for our amazing worship team. 2 Sundays ago, they put together an entire Christmas Eve service at the last minute. And may we hold peace in our hearts.
Excellent. And we will light one additional candle for those joys and concerns that we hold in our hearts.
Our reading this morning is from the book A House for Hope, The Promise of Progressive Religion for the 21st Century by John A. Burns and Rebecca Ann Parker. Within the theological house of progressive faith, there is room for tremendous variety, diversity, and dissent. But there is also a defining focus, a devotion to the flourishing of life. People of progressive faith care for the sacredness of this world, this life, here and now. We do not look to a world to come that will be more valuable than this world. We cherish our bodies, this earth, this time and place that is within our grasp. We reverence the intimate, intricate, and unshakable reality that all life is connected. We honor and respect the bonds that tie each to all, that weave us into an unescapable net of mutuality. We vow to care for the interdependent web of existence. We desire all life to thrive, and therefore we resist those social evils and systemic injustices that benefit a few at the expense of many, or that allow a privileged existence for some while others have their hearts and bodies broken by exploitation, prejudice, censure, or lack of access to the rights and resources needed for life. We critique any conception of God that functions to bless an unjust status quo or to alleviate human responsibility. We affirm a covenant among all beings that we honor with our hearts, souls, mind, and strength. We will do everything in our power to assure that this covenant of life for life is honored. And we seek to connect our circle with other circles of life, to expand our circle into ever-widening ripples of influence for good. An offering to support the mission of this church will now be given and gratefully received. This past Monday morning on New Year's Day, I checked the news on the CNN app on my phone the way I usually do most mornings, and a particular headline caught my eye. It said, "Why 2024 could mark a watershed in the history of the 21st century." It was an analytical piece written by Stephen Collinson, which focused on the rise of fascist-leaning politics in America and around the world, along with the threat of expanding regional conflicts in the Middle East and elsewhere, and how the political landscape a year from now could be alarmingly different than the democratic norms we've experienced in America and in Western Europe since the end of World War II. Reading the article only reinforced some of the nagging fears and concerns I have been experiencing in recent months, knowing that 2024 promises to be a tumultuous year of bitter politics, unprecedented trials and Supreme Court rulings, and ultimately a critical election in November for the soul of our democracy. And as another sickening start to the new year, only a few days into 2024, and there has already been another mass school shooting, this time in Iowa, which left one sixth grader dead, in addition to the 17-year-old shooter who took his own life. It is difficult to begin this new year without envisioning dark clouds gathering on the horizon. And when we factor in our personal situations, which may make things even more difficult for us, I fear this may be a year when we will have to dig deep within ourselves at times to find the strength to endure. We all have fears and anxieties and physical and emotional needs that will be challenged. And I am grateful to have found my way to a progressive faith that can be a source of inspiration and hope in difficult times. It is a fundamental aspect of being human to seek safety and comfort and to become anxious when we feel that our well-being is threatened. In 1943, the psychologist Abraham Maslow published a famous paper called A Theory of Human Motivation, in which he proposed a theory that described human stages of growth in terms of a 5-layer pyramid of needs that motivate psychological development throughout life. It is commonly referred to as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the base of the pyramid is what he called physiological needs, followed by safety, love, esteem, and self-actualization. When we think about what generates fear and anxiety in our lives, you could think about it in terms of Maslow's hierarchy. What we fear is essentially what threatens to deprive us of the needs we have developed. Physiological needs are the most basic and obvious: air, water, food, clothing, and shelter to sustain us and protect us from physical danger. Also, we have a need to reproduce and make sure that our offspring survive to maturity for the continuation of our species. The second need for safety is closely related: personal safety from harm, whether from accidents or from the violence of war or abuse, good health, economic security. A threat to our physiological needs or safety is a real danger to our well-being, and there's good reason that deep in the primitive reptilian part of our brains, it triggers a fear response that gets our attention. Our senses evoke a fight or flight reaction that has evolved to save us from harm, whether it was a confrontation with a dangerous animal, an approaching thunderstorm, or even an uneasy feeling about someone following us down a dark street. As we move up the hierarchy, the next layer is the need for love and a sense of belonging. From our earliest years, human beings need to feel love from family relationships and intimacy. And as we grow older, we need friendships and a sense of social belonging. These needs can create tremendous fears about the loss of such relationships and even overwhelm our desire for our own basic safety. We see this in abused children and spouses still clinging to their abusers, fearing the loss of relationship more than the physical harm they endure. We see this in the anguish of LGBTQ plus teens and adults who fear that coming out will mean being ostracized or thrown out of their families. And far too often, they are right to be afraid. The top two layers of the hierarchy are self-esteem and the closely related idea of self-actualization. Everyone wants to be accepted and respected by others and to achieve some sense of purpose in life. For some people, this need can be very strong, and if they perceive a lack of respect, they can suffer a sense of low self-esteem that can be very detrimental. Depression and other psychological conditions can contribute significantly to low self-esteem and reinforce the fear and anxiety that comes with it. The self-actualization layer also links us to the idea of finding meaning in life. We are both blessed and cursed with the knowledge of our own mortality. And this leads us to ask questions about the meaning of human existence and what happens to us when we die. It is a natural human inclination to seek some spiritual center or ultimate concern around which we orient our lives, whether we call it God or something else. To deny this impulse is to deny the sacred dimension of human life. And I think it prevents us from becoming full human beings. I'm not saying that you have to believe in life after death or any other particular religious concept, but I am saying that developing a personal sense of what is sacred in life is essential to finding meaning. As the theologian Paul Tillich said, the anxiety of meaninglessness is anxiety about the loss of an ultimate concern, of a meaning which gives meaning to all meanings. This anxiety is aroused by the loss of a spiritual center, of an answer, however symbolic and indirect, to the question of the meaning of existence. The world offers many challenges and threats to our hierarchy of needs, and fear and anxiety is a natural response. There are also many projected and imagined dangers that evoke just as strong a fear response deep in our psyches. We can easily become so overwhelmed by such fears that we lose the ability to discern what we really should be afraid of. Using the analogy of being afraid in the wilderness, the ancient Greek playwright Sophocles observed, "To him who is in fear, everything rustles." In other words, our minds can play tricks on us, and we may begin to feel our unwarranted fears are even normal or justified. But please don't think I'm being dismissive of the fear that is being felt. The feeling is very real, and it can be paralyzing. What I am suggesting is, whether the fear is real or imagined, we might be able to overcome some of these feelings of fear by evaluating their source or changing our perspective. And as people on a spiritual journey, people who recognize the need for a spiritual center which gives meaning to all meanings, we can draw deeply from spiritual traditions and our communities when we are confronted with fear or despair that life so readily pours into our hearts. It is a common theme in the great religious traditions to give voice to our fears and cry out to the universe or the gods for salvation or reassurance. Just consider, for example, the Psalms written by ancient Hebrew poets, which are filled with appeals for divine assistance, with words like, "Do not give me up to the will of my adversaries." And indeed, the Hebrew and Christian scriptures are filled with stories about the tribulations and fears of the human condition. In the Gospel of Luke, for example, Jesus famously tells his disciples, "Do not keep worrying," and then practically steps through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, telling them to trust in the kingdom of heaven to provide. There is a reason that the expression "fear not," or "be not afraid," or something similar is found over 100 times in the Bible. And even if most Unitarian Universalists no longer count on divine intervention for deliverance, our faith in the sacredness of life gives us hope that there is goodness and salvation in this world despite whatever evil and darkness we may face. It can be hard, but maybe we should have more faith in the beloved community, a reimagining of the kingdom of heaven on earth, trusting in the power of love. It is easy to be afraid. There are plenty of reasons to be afraid. Let's not sugarcoat reality. But neither let us give into fear and despair. Let us find hope. Let us reach into the wisdom of our faith and the strength of our communities and find ways to overcome these fears with hope. Whenever I think about hope, I'm reminded of something Dr. Cornel West said in an interview several years ago, something I have often quoted. Dr. West does not shy away from making controversial statements about society and politics, and I don't always agree with his opinions, but what he said about hope really stuck with me. West was asked if he was an optimist, and staying true to his vernacular, This was his reply. Optimism and hope are different. Optimism tends to be based on the notion that there's enough evidence to say, looks pretty good out there, things gonna be better. Much more rational, deeply secular. Whereas hope looks at the evidence and says, it don't look good at all. But we're gonna make the leap of faith, go beyond the evidence to create new possibilities based on visions that can become contagious, to allow people to engage in heroic action always against the odds, no guarantee whatsoever. That's hope. I'm a prisoner of hope. I'm gonna die a prisoner of hope. Never gonna believe that misery and despair gonna have the last word. Ever since I came across this quote, I have strongly identified with the last three sentences. They speak to the very core of my religious beliefs. I'm a prisoner of hope. I'm gonna die a prisoner of hope. Never gonna believe that misery and despair are gonna have the last word. I believe our faith calls us to be prisoners of hope, to envision a better world and live that vision into being. Every time someone decides to act on their vision of a better world, it is an affirmation of hope. And this is true whether it is a small gesture or a demonstration of incredible courage and resolve. Having the courage to act in spite of our fears has been a hallmark of people of faith since the beginning. I think about the story of the Unitarian minister Reverend Waitstill Sharp and his wife Martha, who risked their lives in Nazi-occupied Europe helping Jews escape the Holocaust. They are now honored among the righteous among the nations at the Yad Vashem Memorial in Israel. I think about the Reverend James Reeb, who answered Dr. King's call to come to Selma, and how he was beaten to death because he showed up. And I think about Viola Liuzzo, an activist from the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Detroit, who was murdered in Alabama by the Ku Klux Klan in 1965 for helping the effort to register black voters. These people were tremendous heroes of our faith who risked or gave their lives to make this a better world. But most of us will never face such extraordinary situations. I also think about the thousands of Unitarian Universalists who turn out year after year to bear witness for justice causes and to speak truth to power. People who understand the value of being allies to those who struggle with issues most of us can only imagine. Just showing up can be an act of courage and an affirmation of hope. It fills my heart with pride to see so many of my fellow Unitarian Universalists rising to the occasion again and again throughout America, striving to expand our circle into ever-widening ripples of influence for good. Unfortunately, I suspect there will be plenty of opportunities ahead. As we enter this tumultuous new year, there are plenty of reasons to be afraid. But friends, take heart. There are at least as many reasons to have hope. Look closely when tragedy strikes, and you will see people acting with kindness in the middle of our darkest human moments. Ordinary people step into the darkness with the light of hope and reach out to their neighbors in need, whether it is a personal tragedy or a national call to action. Our faith affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. And I rest in the hope that we will live up to our aspirations. We have a long history of doing so. As long as I live, I pray that I will remain a prisoner of hope, that I will never let misery and despair have the last word. I invite you now to rise again in body or spirit and join in singing our closing hymn, number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Our closing words are the poem Maybe Hope, Maybe Faith by Mary Oliver. In the winter I am writing about, there was much darkness. Darkness of nature, darkness of event, darkness of the spirit, a sprawling darkness of not knowing. We speak of the light of reason. I would speak here of the darkness of the world and the light of, but I don't know what to call it. Maybe hope, maybe faith, but not a shaped faith, only say a gesture or a continuum of gestures. But probably it is closer to hope that is more active and far messier than faith must be. Faith, as I imagine it, is tinsel and cool and has no need of words. Hope, I know, is a fighter and a screamer.
Please join me in reading the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.